Now, my guest today is Tonye Princewill, who is notable as the executive producer of 76, one of the more successful Nollywood movies in recent times, and which becomes available to global audiences on the streaming giant Netflix from August the 4th. 76 is, of course, a Nigerian fictional historical drama film set 6 years after the Nigerian Civil War and around the unsuccessful military coup of 1976 and the assassination of the head of state, General Murtala Mohammed. But making movies is just one aspect of the multifaceted career of Mr. Princewill, who is not just a film producer, but is at once a businessman, philanthropist, and politician. He's twice emerged as a governorship candidate in his home state of Rivers in the Niger Delta, and he's developed a passionate following amongst Nigerian youths in return for his considerable investment in youth development. In a sense, his philanthropy has come to define a generation of disaffected teen and 20-somethings in the Niger Delta who've come of age amidst the ravages of contemporary Nigeria. Well, in a moment, I'll be joined in the studio by Tonye Princewill. But first, here's a brief look at the trailer for the movie 76, which is on Netflix from August the 4th.
10,000 innocent public officials have been dismissed because they have no voice.
We're soldiers. It's our duty to make sacrifices.
How can you say judge reform is a curse when everybody's enjoying it?
I do not know any member of your family, and I am already pregnant for you.
There's no need for you to be scared. You know how much I love you.
We continue to suffer in silence out of sheer loyalty to this nation.
And this is your best way to handle this. This guy is a snitch. We shouldn't take any chances.
What am I to you?
I have no respect for you, for my family.
I am yet to see the family of yours that deserves the respect you bring! This is a high-profile operation. 5 VIPs have been slated for assassination, including the head of state. Please seal up all the plotting exes as soon as he enters.
There was a coup today in Nigeria, which is Black Africa's biggest and richest nation and the world's 8th largest oil producer.
Which spiraled into a recall of ambassadors of all countries.
Coup now begins to look more and more like a straightforward military assault.
Are you aware of the breach of national security recently?
What is my husband's fate?
Looks brilliant, doesn't it? And the executive producer of 76, Tonye Princewill, who is at once a politician, businessman, and philanthropist, joins me now in the studio. Great to see you, Tonye.
Thank you, Charles. It's
and
great
congratulations again. Every time I see that trailer, it really just, I mean, it's absolutely riveting material. And I think the performances are really what lift them, but also the look of the film. And we'll talk about that look in a moment. But let's talk about the movie in general. You're the executive producer. It's going on Netflix from the 4th of August and will be available to a worldwide audience. The movie stars Ramsey Noah, Rita Dominique, and others, and presumably it hasn't been available to an international audience yet.
Not quite. I mean,
not a global audience.
Not a global audience.
Right.
Definitely not at this scale. We've been to festivals and we've had a couple of runs here and there, but this is a different league. It's a different territory. We're happy with Netflix because Netflix is obviously a global platform, and they gave us our due. Normally, you find people coming on platforms like this and they're shortchanged. Netflix did not shortchange us.
So you're considerably richer now then?
We're considerably better off as a country because they've given us the profile that we deserve.
Okay, you're talking generally speaking.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you're not talking specific to your movie.
I can be specific, but confidentiality and so on.
Of course,
so
yeah.
But we're happier. Let's put it as a country, we're happier, and as a production team, we're a lot happier as well.
I mean, when you look back at that trailer, I mean, I noticed that you winced a couple of times.
I did, because you have to remember that we shot this movie in 2012. And we didn't come out to global audiences or to national audiences till 2016. I mean, some of the stuff we're looking at, we're thinking we can do a lot better. I mean, the movie we're about to do now, we're sort of reminding ourselves that, look, this is 2021. So I'm happy that for a 2012 production, we still just about avoid the kind of criticism that would come, because internally we do a lot of self-criticism. And so this would not fly for 2021. But we're glad that it just about passed.
Right, and I understand that getting the look, that 70s Nigeria look right, was a bit of a, you know, right and believable was a bit of a challenge for you. I mean, I can imagine.
From the cars to, I mean, don't forget that back in 1976, there was no MTN. Most of the brands that we know today didn't exist in 1976. So
no mobile phones.
No pure, I mean, the pure water sachets are everywhere now, but there were no pure water sachets then. People were drinking from pipe-borne water from their taps. There was no fetching of water in buckets and carrying them, and tankers running around the place. That wasn't happening. But more importantly, one of the brands that we were able to capture back in 1976, which was valid at the time we were shooting, was Star. But Maltina wasn't. I mean,
You mean Star Beer?
Star Beer.
Right.
Maltina wasn't. Maltina was really aching to get into the game, but Maltina came out in 1977.
So you had to do quite a lot of research.
Oh yeah, we had to do lots of research to make sure that the brands that were on display were only brands that were valid and authentic. So continuity, authenticity, originality was very important. And of course the cars. I don't even want to tell you about how we got the cars together. One of the cars, we actually had to stop someone. We saw his car. We're thinking, wow, we had to buy his car from him on the street and literally let him walk away with his money. So getting the cars was hard work, even getting the mechanics to fix the cars.
So they could actually run.
We had to go and get some old guys in dusty corners of Ibadan to actually get them to do. So it was a lot of work, and you know, I'm proud of the team, and we're happy that you know, a global audience now gets to see the movie.
And what about the military hardware? I mean, that must have been a bit of a challenge as well.
Oh, it was. I mean, not just the military hardware, but we're talking about the script. We're talking about, we had basically minders looking.
I mean, you had to get them to approve the script.
They had to approve
the Nigerian
script.
army.
They had to, and then at each stage they had to be there. I mean, when the movie was finished, ready to go to the cinema, I had 4 generals come to my house, watch the movie, and take notes. And so when they finished, I said, you know, so what do you think? And they said, sorry, no comment, and we will get back to you. So it was that kind of an environment, but we were collaborating with them. So to us it was, and don't forget, we have a director by the name of Ojukwu. So, you know, all those Biafra sentiments.
Images were kind of flying around.
So they wanted to be sure that we had, you know, everything in play. But I'm happy that there was no point where they said take this out or remove this. And to be fair to our team, we were critical of the army within this movie as well. And they took it on the chin, so good, because...
Well, that's pretty progressive, isn't it?
Yeah, because we're doing another movie which is going to be about Boko Haram. There's already a sequel to 76, which is 77, which is already in the script is being put together. So we want to tell authentic movies, and sometimes authentic movies will, you know, they will hurt.
So is that now your sort of forte, historical dramas?
Oh yeah, I mean, people ask me what's the connection between politics and movie production, and I say...
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, because it's, honestly speaking, it's all about the image of Nigeria. You know, I'm not in the business of complaining. The complaining is complaining about the moments. This is not right. Okay, fine. I mean, everybody has the right to complain. But I'm going beyond that. I'm asking myself, so how do I make sure that I'm not complaining about this tomorrow? So if I'm in an airport in Heathrow, for instance, and I have a Nigerian passport, I want to be proud to be a Nigerian. And I see what this movie has done to international audiences. I see what this movie, it's basically, this is our ambassador. It's going ahead of us.
Yeah, but obviously that's just one aspect of the numerous afflictions that Nigeria faces.
We can only do but what we can.
No, absolutely.
As individuals, of course.
But I mean, you did, to some extent, answer the question I was going to ask you next, because I was going to say that you released that film in 2016, 5 years ago.
Correct.
And when you add the fact that you made it in 2012, then you've got about 9 years. I mean, that is a lot of emotion to go into, you know what I mean, a film, and a lot of energy and so on. People have been wondering, but you have answered that, mustering the sheer energy and the creative force and the financial muscle to make another movie. I mean, that's usually, I mean, that takes a lot out of a person, doesn't it? Fans of 76 waiting for something else from you. When can they expect this Boko Haram film to emerge?
Okay, so we will definitely start casting before the end of the year. The script is ready.
So what's it about?
It's basically about, without going too deep into the story, it's about the lives of the common people within this madness. In 76, we looked at the life of the women, the family. No one looks at the family as the chief protagonists. You're thinking about the coup plotters. You're thinking about the victims of the coup plotters. But no one's talking about the wives who are affected at home. The same thing we want to do with Boko Haram is we want to go behind the scenes. We want to go into the day-to-day lives of the people. We want to go into the day-to-day lives of the Boko Haram people before they became Boko Haram. Let people get an understanding of the human factor, the human element.
So there's a human story there.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Milkmaid, but it kind of addresses that, not quite as comprehensively as this, I think, but it addresses it through the eyes of two of the girls who were kidnapped. So it's more sort of the Chibok type sort of kidnapped story, right?
But from the human sort of perspective, not from the sort of razzmatazz, what you see.
But those stories need to be told.
They absolutely do, because that is the only way that you can get people to connect to the reality of the problem. And so for us as Nigerians, I think we have to be telling our own story, and we can only tell us, we weren't kidnapped. Unfortunately, we can't say the story from that perspective, but we can say the story from the perspective of the average Nigerian who's innocent bystander, victims of all of this drama.
Stay with us. We want to talk with you some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the movie producer, businessman and politician Tonye Princewill. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, my guest today is Tonye Princewill, businessman, philanthropist, politician, and prince of the Kalabari Kingdom, where his father is a first-class traditional ruler, in addition to being an eminent professor of microbiology. But apart from his family background, Mr. Princewill is the executive producer of the hit Nollywood movie 76, which will be available on Netflix from the 4th of August. As the movie has gone around the world, he's become a sort of unacknowledged ambassador of Nollywood, Nigeria's movie industry. But he's also been described as one of the more influential Nigerians of his generation, having been a governorship candidate twice in Rivers State in the Niger Delta, where he comes from, first in 2007 under Action Congress and again in 2015 under the Labour Party. He's also a noted newspaper columnist, analysing the various issues that confront Nigeria today. And Tonye Princewill is still with me in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. We're going to talk about your politics in a moment, but let's talk a little bit about your background. You were the only child of your father, but you had stepbrothers and sisters as well, didn't you?
I did, yes. Still do. My mother had 5 kids before my father married her. So I'm the first of my father and the last of my mother. But my brothers and my sisters brought me up like I was no different. In fact,
are they much older than you?
Yeah.
Or sort of
they are.
Younger than you, or somewhere in between?
Much older than I am.
Right.
I am. But yeah, so it wasn't until I was a lot older that I realized that we had different fathers. But My father brought them up as his own, and of course we...
Well, that's extremely benevolent of him.
I guess it's the kind of man that he is. I was just happy to be in a very loving, very loved household. And so for me, giving is a natural thing. It's a byproduct of life. Being in an environment where you're loved, being in an environment where you give love, to me is just really, it's what everybody deserves.
Right, but I was sort of reading somewhere that you were sort of the only child with your mother and your father living together. So the step ones were not there, or were they
no, for the early part of my life, no, because we're in the UK. I was 7 years old when we came back to Nigeria. So for the early part of my life, but from when we came back in, they were there. Yes, my older brothers especially were in university. So during the university session they were away, but of course once the university was off, they were back. And I remember running, when my brothers come back, I'd run and jump on them. Now I'm about 6'2", and the tallest is 5'9". So, so they're a bit difficult jumping.
Might
on
not
them
be
now.
a good idea to really jump.
Yes, but back then.
But I mean, were you lonely as a child then?
I never felt that way. Okay, because you know what it's like in the average Nigerian home. You've got house helps, you've got cousins.
Yeah, but of course you grew up in England. I mean,
in England when I was
your early years.
Oh yeah, so that probably explains why I was so excited to arrive in Nigeria and see brothers and sisters, and of course everything else. But I learned how to make the best of my own company. So I've never been one who is craving of crowds. In fact, most of my friends who knew me growing up, secondary school, university, were surprised when I got into politics, because they thought that, you know, that wasn't my setting. And of course I had no interest in politics when I was a student.
Well, I mean, you were a petroleum engineer.
So I was really not bothered about school politics, departmental politics, none of that. I quite enjoyed going to watch Formula One races, driving up to Manchester to watch my team play football. It annoys me now that when Mandela was about to be released, I was alive and well, and I had no idea about all of that stuff.
Well, I have to be honest. I mean, I knowing you from England, I mean, I kind of vaguely remember you cruising around in a sports car.
Exactly. So my priorities were very different. But when I came back and I saw that I was having fun, but lots of people were not, I became less comfortable about where I was as a person, and more interested in, hang on, I'm not special, so why should it be so much better for me when the next man should be having an opportunity?
I mean, we're going to talk about your philanthropy and what drives you, because I mean, you've done a lot in that direction, but you've also, I mean, you've also done a lot for a man who is still reasonably young, in areas such as business, in entertainment, as I mentioned, in philanthropy, and also in politics. But it's in that last category, politics, that your career journey appears to have been longest and most difficult, hasn't it? Is that a fair assessment?
Oh yeah, I mean, if I was running for governor in 2007, we're now in 2021, so that's a lot of years. But my take on it really is the journey has been very enjoyable. There have been disappointments, no doubt, but...
has it been enjoyable? I mean, Rivers politics is a real brawl, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, people are killed and you know, there's a lot of fighting and, you know...
But that's why I'm there. I mean, I suspect that if it wasn't as difficult, I probably wouldn't be there.
But how do you justify people dying?
I don't.
Just to win an election? I'm not saying you in particular, but I mean...
No. I don't justify it at all. I think... sorry, my apologies for going into football again, but it's like a football analogy. If you want to change the style of play, you've got to change the players. And ultimately, if the people who mean well, who abhor violence, and who are interested in peaceful development don't step up, then it's not going to change.
Yeah, but here you are, you're articulate, you're considered to be dynamic as a politician. Why do you think you've failed up to this point to find that strong voice and that strong role in government and public service and elected office?
Right, so you've listed a couple of options here. Elected office, I mean, I've made my attempts. Why have I not succeeded in elective office? Because I've not been prepared to kill, maim, and steal. And no apologies for that. Would I change my style? Would I change my approach in order to get into elective office? No. I believe very strongly that this style and this approach is what will get us somewhere. Because if you win by that method, you will ultimately govern by that method. And then ultimately the place goes no further. So I can't do that. That's not in my
But you've built alliances with people who ostensibly have, based on what you're saying.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, anyone who thinks that there's a huge difference between the political parties is just deceiving themselves. What makes the difference is the people who lead the parties. So if Party A is led today by an individual who means well, then that party would probably reflect that person. But even that individual has a limit to what they can or cannot do. But alliances need to be formed. I am not acting holier than thou. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and you know, throw a few punches if necessary.
Right, but I mean, having
but
moved...
I won't kill anyone.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Yes.
But having moved through various political parties, from the AC to the Labour Party to the PDP, and now you're in the APC, does a prominent portfolio seem imminent, or does it remain elusive, particularly considering, for example, that the Buhari administration is winding down or will soon be on its way out?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility, but that's not what I live for. For me, I believe, playing a prominent role now. I'm doing a lot, as you've said, either for my age or for my political profile. I think I'm doing a lot. Tomorrow something can come up, but we're actually looking towards the next administration now, for those of us who are in politics.
That's a very important point.
Yes.
Please stay with us. We want to talk with you some more. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the movie producer, businessman and politician Tonye Princewill. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, my guest today is Tonye Princewill, a movie producer, businessman, politician and philanthropist whose work amongst Nigeria's disaffected youth, particularly those in the Niger Delta, has earned him the respect and admiration of many. In many ways, his philanthropy has helped not only the so-called have-nothings, including rural women, widows, orphans, and the youth, but it's also cast a harsh light on the glaring disparity between the poor in the Niger Delta and across Nigeria and the country's rich ruling elite. And he continues to sound notes of warning that the wider and more glaring the disparity, the greater the wave of political anger, which in turn gives vent to crime, violence, and the rising threat of insecurity in Nigeria and across the subcontinent. And regularly in his newspaper columns, he confronts what he sees as issues that are problematic in Nigeria today, such as health, corruption, security, infrastructure development, academic advancement, and ethnic harmony. And Tonye Princewill is still with me in the studio. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. Let's talk about your philanthropy. You've done quite a bit on that score, from organizing relief activities in the Niger Delta through your Princewill Trust to launching several initiatives to support rural women, orphans, widows, the youth. Tell us why all that is important to you.
Okay, so for me, it's really important to give back. Find a way in which you can lift people up. And what annoys me more than anything is I'm not able to do enough. And it's frustrating because just a wheel on a car is enough to pay school fees for a little young Niger Deltan boy all the way up to secondary school. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So you are left. At one point I said, I used to fly first class. I said, I'm not flying first class anymore, because the difference between flying first class, business class, economy can actually pay, for major health care.
Very true.
All sorts of things. So you start to look inward and ask yourself, where do you draw the line? You make sacrifices and you make sacrifices. And that's why I went into politics. I'm like, okay, I can't do enough by myself. I need to get into government, because I need to make a change from within government. Government controls the resources. They even control the environment for businesses to thrive. So ultimately, I want to get into politics. So it's just that desire to try and help, assist, support, because I am 52 now, and I have seen a lot. And I'm quite comfortable that at this stage in my life, I can sort of sit back and, watch the cars go by. And so I want to see if I can make a difference to people as much as possible, so that they can also see the kind of things that I have seen.
Well, the fact, of course, is that you started doing this quite a long time ago, long before you became 52, and sort of sat back to look at things happening. But, I mean, more recently, you've been sponsoring Nigerian youth delegations on tours to Dubai and Ghana to learn about entrepreneurship, good governance, leadership, self-development. How do those things manifest themselves during those tours?
Okay, so in Ghana, for instance, what I wanted to show the young people was orderly transition of government, and not incumbent to incumbent, but incumbent to opposition. It had just happened. There was just an election, and I wanted them to speak to the electoral body, the equivalent of the INEC in Ghana. I also wanted them to see how local government was run, because I noticed Accra to be a very clean city. So I dug a little deeper and I found out quite a few things, and I thought, this is an experience I want to share. So I wanted to take the youths to see how government is run, how orderly transitions happen, how elections happen, how election malpractice is avoided, and how people speak and have a voice. In the case of Dubai, I'm looking at a country or a city that was nowhere 30 years ago, or was, I wouldn't say nowhere, but you know what I mean. It was,
absolutely.
When it came to development index, it was somewhere at the bottom. So I wanted the young people to see government in action, and of course I wanted them to speak to people, leaders, who had sort of championed this transition, to hear from them, hear about their ideals, their vision. And the experience was truly mind-blowing.
And is it the same group who go to Ghana and then go to Dubai?
Well, in the case of Ghana, I took 33 people to Ghana, and then from the 33, I selected the best 10 and took them to Dubai. But recently, we're doing something slightly different. We're going a bit lower, younger generation, people who are just finishing university, who are still in university. And we're taking that group now to Dubai to get them to see something similar, but on a grander scale. And we want to be doing it every year. If we can, increase the numbers as well.
So what's the ultimate objective?
The ultimate objective is to get them to see what I have seen. What is burning inside of me is because I travel. I see the world. Yeah,
but you travel regularly, and you travel consistently.
Yes.
I mean, this is a one-shot thing for them, and then they return back to the mire.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I would love it to be a lot more extensive. Possibly it can, because some of them who are undergraduates or postgraduates can actually get admission into universities in places I go to. So that's part of the plan. But you have to understand that even though I go and I do my own thing, when I do, this is all consolidated. They're going to get to speak to the leaders of Dubai. They're going to get to speak to the opinion formers of Dubai, the media business. They're going to get to go to the places that I only got to maybe after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 visits. They get to see them on the first attempt. So we've consolidated everything into a week of really packed activities. Would I like to have it longer? Of course, but there's limited resources and there's limited time. So we're going to make a program of it. I know that as we continue, it will get a lot better.
So how does being a successful businessman and a philanthropist compare to being a politician in Nigeria?
All right, so I think that one should inform the other. We really shouldn't have politicians who don't have daytime jobs. We really should have politicians who are bringing something to the table, politicians who have a wealth of experience in the real world. They don't necessarily have to be businessmen, they can be professionals of any sort. But it's very good when you bring that experience into the political space. A lot of people go straight from school into politics, and I don't think that's ideal. But everyone has their own unique perspective. This is mine, but I can tell you that as a businessman, I have learned how to use money well. I have learned how to develop opportunity, and like a very important CEO of a major multinational told me in Nigeria, the politicians don't understand the language of business, so they can't create the environment for us to thrive. And so I think that's very important, because the largest employer of labor should be small to medium scale enterprise. And if the largest employer of labor should be small to medium scale enterprise, it means that the politicians need to be helping small to medium scale enterprise. And if they don't understand the challenges of small to medium scale enterprise, like multiple taxation, the absence of cheap capital, affordable capital, skills development for staff, if they don't understand those issues, then there's no way they can create an environment for businesses to thrive. And then, of course, it means that the employment issue that we have in Nigeria will continue to rise.
Very interesting. So
and just to say, when you consider that Nigeria, by 2050, will probably be the third largest country in the world, if we don't sort out the employment problems of this generation, then
it's pretty urgent, isn't it?
We have a major problem
ahead of us. It's pretty urgent.
Absolutely.
So here you are, a reasonably young politician, full of bright ideas, yet stuck in the mud. Could that be because you're perceived as challenging the old guard, promising to deliver clean government and a fresh start?
I don't see myself as stuck on the mud. But then again,
politically stuck in the mud.
Yeah, but even then, I find myself politically in a very, very strong position. I am a valued member of my party, both nationally and at the state level. When I speak, people listen. I have the ability to, rouse a crowd if needed. I love the grassroots. I love people. So I think my future is pretty bright. As to why I am not where I think I should have been by now, yes, of course, politically. Yes, of course. Maybe if I was a bit more pliant, less controversial, not so ready to speak truth to power, maybe, just maybe, I would have been somewhere else. But I would have been unhappy. Right now I'm very happy because I can speak my mind. If you asked me about the APC, I will speak the truth to you as I see it. I would not feel the need to couch it in order to please some masters.
So in that case, tell us about the APC.
Well, I think the APC is challenged, but we're in a better position than we could have been. I think with the arrival of a new chairman, the future is bright. We've got some challenges ahead of us, tricky. We are probably in a better position than we would have been if we had a stronger opposition in PDP. But PDP isn't providing the kind of opposition that would make us worry.
PDP, of course, the party that you used to be a part of.
Yes, so I know them pretty well. You've heard about recent defections, governors moving from PDP to APC.
We've seen some of those.
Yes, less likely to go the other way. So APC...
Yeah, but that tends to happen in any case when with a party in power.
Yeah, but
it's not because the party is incredibly brilliant, it's just because they've got political power.
I think
and people tend to gravitate towards political power, particularly Nigerian politicians.
True, but in 2014, 5 PDP governors of a ruling party moved to the opposition. I'm not saying that I understand and I take your point. All I'm saying is that brilliant is not quite the word you use to describe APC at the moment. I am quite comfortable that APC is a better option than PDP, but it's a hard sell. Lots of people are not happy.
Well, the problem, of course, is that APC is in power.
Absolutely.
At a time when insecurity in this country is greater than it has ever been. It's in power at a time when economic insecurity is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah, that's a perspective that I would not disagree with. But I would plead with people because with COVID, with the economy, with the reduced oil price, there were challenges anyway. But if I'm going to sit down and tell you that APC has done a fantastic job, no, I'd be lying. If APC has not done a fantastic
let's be
job.
pretty clear. Food prices have gone up by nearly a quarter. We've seen the Naira devalued by 1/3 against the US dollar in the past year. More than half the country is living in poverty. Economic growth has either been downgraded or is very sluggish. Nigeria, frankly, is at breaking point.
Well, I will also throw to you that this, as a businessman and someone who's really, really interested in attracting foreign investment, I have never, in my several years of working with foreign investors, seen the level of enthusiasm for foreign investment in Nigeria. So,
well, we're not seeing that ourselves. You may be seeing it, but we're not. But I'm going to ask you to stay with us because we've got to take a break. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with the movie producer, businessman, and politician Tonye Princewill. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniagolu. Now, my guest today, Tonye Princewill, is a successful businessman, respected philanthropist, prominent politician, acknowledged movie producer, and arguably one of the more influential Nigerians of his generation. The movie he executive produced, 76, is on Netflix from August the 4th, and it's had rave reviews since its release in 2016. So, success in business and in entertainment. But his other passion is politics, and in that pursuit he is yet to achieve his dream of winning executive office so far. But of course the trumpet blast has sounded for a quickening of the pace towards the campaign race for the 2023 general election. So will he this time manage to thunder into the sort of action that will help him close the jaws of a pincer around the electorate? Or will the crash and roar of the electoral political battle once again shut him out of the corridors of power? And Tonye Princewill is still with me in the studio. I bet you were wondering what I was talking about.
Yeah, I was actually wondering who that was because very impressive. Thank you.
But I mean, would you say that what you've achieved as a businessman and philanthropist, I mean, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, has affected how you've evolved as a politician?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's amazing. I think the mixture of the two is quite symbiotic because as a businessman, I walk into offices and people say, "Oh, Princewill, I know you, I've heard of you," and good things. Surprisingly, I keep wondering, why good things? Because I expect people to say, "Oh, you're an idiot." But it's been very positive.
I think you'd be far from being called an idiot, if I might say so myself.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what people call people sometimes. But I'm grateful for the experience. I didn't go in for the publicity. I didn't go in for the notoriety. I just went in because I wanted to make a difference.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What made you want to become a politician? Because you've got different career paths that have already given you the type of success that many people dream about and can only imagine.
Yeah, to me, it's all about making sure that the young people have the chances that we had and more. My kids are, they're basically trying to decide which job to take. They're in the UK, but the kids here don't have that option, and there's no reason why that should be the case. They should be given the opportunity to live lives, get their own families, and be able to live in a house of their own. And the distance between where they are and where they should be can be closed by our politicians, by the political class. I'm tired of solving problems myself that should be the problems of government, and I'm not alone. Lots of Nigerians are solving problems of Nigerians that the government should be resolving.
But do you think that having your children in England rather than in Nigeria doesn't give you a stronger political voice in this country?
Well, they were born there. My family is there, has always been there. And the deal we had was, Daddy, you go and fix Nigeria and we'll join you. So
I like that.
I'm working on it.
Meanwhile, we'll go to Brent Cross
yes,
and enjoy
exactly, have fun. So they're getting the best of education. One of my sons has special needs, so it's the health challenges he has.
Well, that's understandable.
Yes, it requires that kind of level of medical attention. So I haven't had the need to bring them back. And of course, you know Nigerian politics. River State politics particularly is very brutal. So I'm very comfortable that my family is safe and well and sound while I'm, rolling up my sleeves and getting on with it. So they are where they are.
Right. So here you are straddling the fence between business and politics. Nigeria mired in an economic crisis under an APC government, people struggling with long-standing challenges which have been exacerbated by the pandemic and deteriorating security. If you were in charge and in government in Nigeria, how would you avert financial meltdown as well as help deliver stability and reduce insecurity?
Okay, so it's a big task. Without a doubt, it's a big task. For me, the real test for the success of a government is how the people feel. And it doesn't matter what the politicians feel, it doesn't matter what the leaders feel, it's how the people feel that matters. For me, I think the first thing that we need to worry about is food security. I see that the president has recently addressed the issue of food security, food pricing, and I know that without a shadow of a doubt, the major problem we have with that is distribution. We need to improve the distribution of food. It's not just about growing the food, but it's also making sure that the food travels and has access to the rest of the country. I know that when it comes to that, the logistics for this country is completely off the charts. It's, compared to other countries, moving products around is a nightmare, and all of that needs to be addressed. As for general security, I've got to be honest with people. Everyone says that the security situation is really bad right now, and I do not disagree. But I want to remind people about the security situation, not just the Jonathan administration, but even way back into the Obasanjo administration.
Yeah, but that's no consolation.
I just want to remind people about this, because in the Niger Delta, where I am from, the peace and security is significantly better right now.
Well, it's only better until you get into campaigns and politics again. Well, I mean, that's the measure. No. I mean, I understand what you mean by, militancy has gone down.
You've got your. So I mean, it was terrible. I mean, communities were being wiped out.
Yeah, but the
communities were being wiped out.
Well, if you're making it a political issue, the people who negotiated the deal with the militants were the PDP. I mean, it's Yar'Adua who negotiated all that.
I'm trying not to make it political. What I'm saying is that if you look at the situation right now, the kind of peace and security we have in the Niger Delta is unparalleled. We've not had it before.
You're saying it in a political way.
No, I'm just trying to point out if you're going to address insecurity.
Right.
I was looking at it purely from a governance perspective. So it doesn't matter the political party. You ask the question, how would you address security or insecurity? And I'm saying that the examples from then, even if it was a PDP government that negotiated it, I think that we need to recognize that if you do not have a police force that is properly funded and equipped to deal with insecurity, expecting security is like a mirage. The military, previous military administrations consistently underfunded the police. And when the civilian administrations came up, they were, maybe you can call them military version 2. So the police has been consistently underfunded. So the insecurity in the country, in my opinion, should not be a huge surprise. We have 200 and God knows how many million people. and a police force that cannot even match a tenth of that number. So we need to increase our police force.
Yeah, but you've had 6 years to do that, and you haven't really done that.
I'm trying to make sure that it's not a political point.
Yes, I understand what you mean.
It's beyond an administration.
But you still have to hold the government in power responsible.
All right, so let's ask the question, if we want to look at it as a political point, is this government spending more money on the police than previous governments?
Well, I'll tell you what.
The answer is yes.
Right, okay. Well, let's leave it at that. We've got, this is the last minute of the chat, and we appreciate
Are you serious? It's over already? When they told me an hour, I almost passed out.
What I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, my final point is this. Having done all this, entertainment, movie producer, petroleum engineer, businessman, philanthropist, and politician.
Project manager.
What's your philosophy of life, and what defines your political ideology?
My political ideology is defined by making sure that this generation leaves a better future for the next generation. So far, we failed, and that's why I continue to strive. I really should be resting at this point, but I can't rest until I make sure that that happens.
Okay. Tonye Princewill, thank you exceedingly.
Pleasure being here.
That's it for this edition of The Arise Interview. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.